just said. I don't know whether you agree or disagree in terms of focusing more on our local contractors and giving them. How do we miss that time and time again as commissioners or elected officials, not to focus more on trying to keep jobs and opportunities on the local level? And what would you do differently? If you agree with him, how would you go about making it happen? If you disagree, why you think it's important to do it differently?
Well, I agree. Anytime there's a bid that can be awarded on a local level, and there is a stipulation you can put in when you're requesting for bids that you ask for local vendor, then we need to do that. But I also think that we have to be responsible with the taxpayers' money. And in many cases, the out-of-town vendors are coming in and they're underbidding the local vendors. So do we award work to a local vendor at the expense of the taxpayers? I'm not sure I can do that and still call myself a steward of the taxpayers' money. One of the things that I think we need to do is to look at our procurement department and make sure that we're not fettered with regulations and things that make us make unwise decisions like some of the ones that we've seen, and also give Ms. Sams the guidance that she needs and the support that she needs to try to keep that business in town as much as possible. But it's still up to local vendors to be competitive. I think that's, the bottom line is going to come down to the dollar, and we want to award every bid that we can to local vendors, but not at a cost to taxpayers.
Tom, when you think about what they've said in terms of that procurement department, you say you had some experience in some of that area around the edges of what we're talking about here. What would you do in terms of trying to get local vendors to understand the need to stay competitive in their bid? Because as I think about that, I'm almost, other than a company being 3 or 4 times larger than me on a local level as a company, I try to understand how can a company from the outside come in and underbid me on a consistent basis. How do we have to deal with that to make us understand as local vendors that we need to be more competitive?
Well, with the local vendors, first of all, they need to understand the scope of the project. Make sure they have the resources that's available to them to take on such a tasking as some of the projects that we would have in the county. Resurfacing roads and stuff like this. Do we have anybody in our district or our county that has that capability? But secondly, if we do the outside vendors, which I believe, agree with Doug and some things they're saying, and Wayne, that we've got to manage the funding first. So always the lowest bid is not the best. But we need to monitor those bids and make sure that we get the best qualified bids for the money, whether it be locally or outside. But if we select outside bidders, then we need to have some stipulation in there where they will be required, where possible, to use as many of the in-house personnel, contracts, and employees as possible as well.
Many times we hear, follow to that, many times, and everybody can get a chance to answer, many times we hear, as Doug mentioned, to talk to the procurement director, we have to be Jerry Sams, but also many times the commissioners sign off on it, because most times she writes the specs, they look at them, they agree to them. So shouldn't commissioners as well be in on this process and understand the dynamics of what we're trying to do? Number one, and the second part of that is the master plan. What do you think about the master plan as well? So I know it's a two-part question, it's two different spectrums, but I want to stay with you.
Back to the commissioners being in on the contracts, the bid purposes, and the bid proposals and stuff like this. Yes, any commissioner in that position needs to have a full understanding of the complete bid package preparation, the proposals, and how to write specification stuff for bids. I have an extensive background in contracting. I did it for the government, and I did it after retiring from the military at Fort Gordon, working in contracting.
What about the master plan?
The master plan?
$500,000 that was paid for that. Also, we're talking about what it unrolled last week. We're talking about $1.1 billion. We know that's over a long haul, but that's what they're saying it would currently cost. So we can only imagine what it would cost if you do it piecemeal.
The master plan is a vision, and we need to have those visions for the future. A lot of questions. How is it going to be paid for? Is it going to be phased in steps or phases? A lot of things that, to have that dream is good, but to be able to put a dream out there and not be able to support it or fund it, that's a different approach. We need to do more, yes. But right now, with the economy the way it is, we spent $500,000. We're furloughing employees. I know the proposal was to try to help prepare for the future, because we're not going to stay like this forever. However, we are like this right now, and I think we could have spent money a little more wisely at the present time and still prosper and got the same thing. And as many people are saying, we have some extremely talented people in this county, in the CSRA, that could probably come up with equally as good or even better proposals to help us do these things. That's where I'd like to see us go more in-house and use our resources that we have available here through our universities, our VOTEC training programs and things of this nature. Let them work with us and help develop some plans. But the funding, $1.something billion, I just don't see Augusta-Richmond County coming up with that type funding through grants, through donations, stimulus packages, or tax money.
Okay. Doug, what do you think about it? Did you have enough information in there about the growth and development and the potential in South Augusta? $500,000 price tag, but at the same time, did you like what you saw, if you saw it at all?
I saw an early version of it. I was not able to make the unveiling, and what I liked about it that differed from the first version is that it actually had some plans for South Augusta, what Mr. Shields is calling hamlets, but areas of commerce that would be surrounded by residential areas, and that's what the folks in the 8th District are clamoring for. From where I live, if I want to go to a Walmart, I have a 17-mile drive in either direction, and it's equal distance from Waynesboro as it is from Deansbridge Road. So we've got to start looking at how to plan and roll out that commerce out to the folks that live out in the 8th District. You had asked another question before that, though, about the procurement, and I think that's an important part of our government because of the amount of money that is let through there.
Lifeline.
Absolutely, absolutely. We had, I'm on the Aviation Commission, and we wanted to subcontract out the housekeeping. So we sent directions down to procurement, and they let it out on bid, we thought. When it came time for us to review those bids, we went, reviewed them, ranked the companies, the top 5 companies, and we opened the first one and saw the dollar amount that they were proposing. So naturally, I said, let's see the next one, and they said no. And there was something in the wording in our request that prohibited us from looking at the second and the third bid, and I thought that was ludicrous. So we washed that out, went back out again, and as a result saved the county $12,000 by rewording what we were asking for that allowed us to look at additional bids. So there's a huge amount of money that I think is being lost there in opportunity. But back to the master plan, is $500,000 too much? I don't know. I think that sometimes it is good to have a fresh set of eyes, fresh ideas. I don't know that $500,000 is the price tag for those. I think we could have probably done something differently with a creative mind, and then with those talents that we have on board already to do the drawings and those kinds of things. But I think it's important to have a plan. A city the size of Augusta without a plan is like a ship without a rudder. And we may not follow that plan to a T. We may amend it, change it, and adapt it. But I think it's important to have a plan. And I would have tried to have done it at a lower cost.
Okay. Wayne, what do you think about the $500,000 price tag and the $1 billion potential there?
Well, I'm actually going to answer, if you don't mind, 3 different issues. One of them, me focusing on trying to push for our government to do business on a local level. I know we do have to be aware of how much we actually give to get to keep our money in the area. Our incentive, I know that with you on your building a bedroom community, you're going to give incentives to the builders or to the landowners, but it would be better if we could generate jobs, and when we generate jobs, we're going to generate growth, and that's where the housing's going to come into play. Of our procurement department, we should have an open bid at the time of bid time. If everybody follows the checklist of everything that is in their bid package correctly, open the bids up at that moment. Don't do it behind closed doors. We got to stop this nepotism and favoritism and actually have everybody on the same playing field.
Okay.
Now, on the third one, the 20-year plan, that is a lot of money. Mr. Shields is a very nice gentleman. I went to both of the meetings at Augusta Tech. I know he's from Boston. I think we have people here that's more knowledgeable of the area that could actually put more vision or goals in place. There's nothing out there for District 8 whatsoever. I think Brown Road, they wanted to build a little convenient, not a shopping center with a neighborhood around it. And then in Blythe at Mr. Aldridge's place, but people want to see more focused out into our area.
Okay.
Like Doug said, he got to drive 17 miles to go to Walmart.
You just mentioned also about Shields also being from Boston, probably
Yes, sir.
capable architects who would know the spirit of this community, the culture of
right.
this community. How does city commissioners not understand that as well, and what do you do to change the direction? And you may not can speak, how do they not see it, but what do you do in conveying to your potential colleagues that we need to look at the spectrum, one thing local, everything should be considered local before we move abroad? How do you convey that message?
Actually put it in the media. Let's say this 20-year plan. No different than the commissioners. They have set-aside departments, head and steering committees to put this stuff together. No different than Doug with the aviation board. Look how much money he saved the county. It's just getting good people together to make it happen.
Doug, I read one of the articles of the profile